The United Nations says it's facing a critical shortage of funds for its aid operation in Myanmar. The UN says it needs $50 million or it'll have to ground helicopters that have been carrying aid to the country's cyclone survivors. Well, here to give us a read on the current state of the crisis is UNICEF's Michael Bossacue. He's the agency's emergency communications officer and he is just back from Myanmar. Michael, it's good to have you on the programme again. Thanks very much indeed for being with us. So first of all, just tell us how things look right now in the disaster zone in Myanmar from which you've just returned.
Well, even though we're already a month and a half past the cyclone itself, one can really still describe this as very much a disaster which is in the relief phase, and we're going to be that way for the next 5 months at least. Now, another new factor are these monsoon rains that are coming down now, and you mentioned the helicopters. They are an absolute essential lifeline, both for cargo and now for moving aid workers into the Delta area. And I was actually on one of those helicopters last Sunday, and it was raining, the winds were strong, and you get a sense of how difficult it is to actually land these helicopters in the Delta area, which is severely flooded. Maps are quite rudimentary, and the actual landscape has been changed. So we really, at one point we invited a villager on board to show us where to deliver some aid. So a lot of complications that are coming together, but UNICEF and others are doing their best to overcome them.
What do you think the prospects are if the helicopters are in fact forced to be grounded?
Couldn't be worse. Again, this is a real supply lifeline for us. You see, what we've been doing earlier before the helicopters arrived is they're delivering things by land and also by boats. But the Irrawaddy Delta is a patchwork quilt of rivers, of streams. There's a lot of fallen trees down there. So what the helicopters actually do is allow us to pinpoint areas that haven't been reached yet and bring very heavy aid. For example, the other day we brought in about 900 kilograms of school tents on one helicopter. So it shows you how vital these are to bringing supplies in.
So $50 million then, that's what the UN is now calling for. Why do you think that there has been this shortfall in the funds coming through? Is it something to do, as many have suspected, with people just being tired of the disasters that are going on in the world?
Well, in terms of the immediate relief appeal, in terms of UNICEF, we're lucky. We've been well funded. People have been very generous in countries around the world. But what we're emphasizing is this is an emergency that's going to go on for quite some time. For example, in our case, 4,000 schools have been destroyed or damaged, and those all need to be rehabilitated or rebuilt. So one does fear that in the aid business is that donor fatigue does kick in with so much happening around the world. But I've always said is the worst thing that could happen is if the international community averts its gaze from this and more children, more women die of preventable causes.
Myanmar is such a secretive place, as we all well know, Michael. Do you think that people that are watching this might be saying, well, you know, if I do stump up some cash, how do I know that it's not just all going to go into a black hole? Can you reassure them otherwise?
It's a very good question, and one that has been asked a lot. In terms of the United Nations, in terms of UNICEF, our supply line is end-to-end. So in other words, we'll bring things in through Yangon Airport and then accompanying it all the way to the worst affected areas. And of course, we do this with partners like the Red Cross, international NGOs and local NGOs. But we are with those supplies all the time. And then we not only deliver supplies, but we actually teach communities how to use things like water pumps, how to put up these tents. So there's capacity building going on at the same time. So not only getting the aid in and showing people how we do it, but also making sure it's used in the most effective way.
How freely were you and your colleagues able to move between the affected areas, Michael? I mean, what are they telling you now about the access that they're able to have?
I think the best way to describe the access, it's kind of an evolutionary thing. At the beginning, there was a lot of, I suppose, reluctance to having, especially foreign technical experts, move from Yangon into the Delta areas. But that has now eased. We're going into places we've never been before. So it's a matter of being patient, but at the same time expressing to the government the dire need to get out there as quickly as possible with foreign technical experts, with our national staff, and with our supplies.